Number 10. Darkfather. Darkfather is the dark multiverse combination of Darkseid and Batman. He inherited the powers of Darkseid after defeating him and became seemingly corrupted by them. He also gained knowledge of the anti-life equation and used it to torment the people of his Earth. His versions of parademons are altered to appear like a bunch of Robins. However, he gave up being the ruler of his own universe in order to join the horrific army of Dark Knights led by the Batman who laughs. Because I guess it's really fun to do. Can't blame him for that. Number 9. Earth 2 Aquaman. Or I guess Earth -2 Aquaman, cause Dark Multiverse? This version of Aquaman comes to us from the Tales of the Dark Multiverse reimagining of Crisis on Infinite Earths. Here Aquaman is the result of his father's mad science experiments. His father made it so that his son would be able to breathe underwater. Born a human but turned merman, Aquaman in this reality always felt like an outcast. Not only is his origins more dark and horrific, but this is also a version of Aquaman that you would certainly not want to come up against. While fighting against Surtur with his fellow members of the Justice Society of Earth, he unleashed 3 massive megalodons on the villain. Yikes. Ooh, I guess megalodons are real on that planet. Are megalodons real on our planet? That's the real question. Number 8. Skeleton Barry Allen. This version of Barry Allen, who appears in Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Dark Knight's Metal, ends up becoming reduced to a skeleton that is animated by the Speed Force. True story. He is like a monstrous version of his former self, but at least he is still a hero. This skeleton version of what remains of Barry Allen is the one who stops Bat family member Duke Thomas, aka Signal, in order to get Duke to confront those he had left behind when he left to try and save the multiverse. In the end, Duke joins the remaining heroes in a final stand, and Barry gives his life to help him in his attempt. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, just a quick reminder to give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying it, and if you want me to talk more about the Dark Multiverse, which I'd love to talk about. I know it's not really here anymore, but I still love it. Number 7. The Flash. This version of the Flash is actually Reverse Flash, aka Eobard Thawne. I know. In a Dark Multiverse reimagining of the event Flashpoint, Thawne ends up defeating Barry Allen when the lightning strike meant to give him back his powers instead kills him. Oh no. With Allen now dead, Thawne is free to take his place as the Flash and focus on making the world just how he thinks it should be, basically terrorizing anyone who would potentially act against him and his will. It's frightening to imagine a world where Reverse Flash wins and ends up getting to become his own version of a hero as a result. I feel like Thawne would not make a very good hero. Number 6. Dread Lantern. Dread Lantern is a tragic Dark Multiverse version of Alan Scott, who leaps out of the pages of Tales from the Dark Multiverse Crisis on Infinite Earths, one of the new tales to come at us near the end of last year, December 2020. In this story, our heroes face off against the villain known as Surtur, and end up only surviving because Alan Scott sacrifices himself to become the Herald of Surtur, the Dread Lantern. In doing so, his Earth is permitted to live, but at the cost of many other worlds that he must help Surtur to destroy. Dread Lantern's sacrifice is heartbreaking as his son, Todd Rice, aka Obsidian, mourns the loss of his father. So sad. Number 5. The Silenced. Batman is often a figure who evokes fear among villains. Fear in many ways is what gives him presence and gives him power, and a lot of the times it is that fear that he evokes that gives him an advantage. This version of Batman plays up the element of fear, turning it all the way up to 11. In Tales from the Dark Multiverse Batman Hush, we get to see Bruce Wayne become a heroic but still terrifying version of that Hush character. Here he is known as Batman the Silenced. This version of Bruce ends up being taken in by his friend Thomas Elliot's family following the untimely death of his own parents. Becoming increasingly unstable after witnessing their murder, he eventually is committed to an asylum, with Tommy taking over Wayne Enterprises eventually, and going on to become a corrupt senator. Later we discovered that Bruce was faking a worsening psychosis as part of a plot to take out all those really responsible for the death of his parents after uncovering the truth. Here he becomes one of the most fearful symbols of the Bat I have ever seen in the comics. If you want a good scary story, you should check out Batman the Silenced and this issue. It's awesome. And I really want to hear someone play the music that's in it, to be honest. It's so spooky music. Number 4. Robin King. This twisted version of Batman is known as the Robin King. His story is told in Dark Knight's death metal Legends of the Dark Knights. In this reality and story, Bruce Wayne is the one to shoot down his parents so that he can be free of them. It's implied here that he was basically born violent and with homicidal tendencies, which only become worse following the death of his parents. Inspired by a robin instead of a bat here, its song reminds him of the delight and joy he felt when killing, and so he set out to do just that. More of that. Oh my. Inspiring other youth to rise up against the old. He also planned to eliminate the established superheroes of his world, learning their weaknesses and arming himself against them. This version of Bruce is not only responsible for the death of Thomas and Martha Wayne, but also took the life of Jim Gordon and Alfred as well in this universe. That's dark. Number 3. The Broken. The Broken is one of the scariest versions of Batman around, in my humble opinion. While many others might not put him at the top of their list, for me, he has to have one of the be-all, end-all of chilling origin stories. The Broken version of Batman, who later goes on to become one of the Dark Knights, first appeared in Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Batman Nightfall. Here we learn that in this much darker alternate reality, after having his back broken, Batman also had Azrael taking over the mantle of Batman, but when he returned, he was unable to take back the cape and cowl from him, instead being defeated by Jean-Paul Valley. Valley would go on to become Saint Batman, and Bruce Wayne would be kept alive as like a head and a torso, connected to a bunch of machinery and tubes. Bruce suffers unbearably painful seizures while kept in this form, and is eventually healed and rescued by the son of Bane and his mother, Lady Shiva. However, Bruce ends up revealing himself to be even worse than Saint Batman when it comes to his dark vision for Gotham. What a twist. Number 2. Gaia. Tara becomes Gaia in the Tales from the Dark Multiverse version of the Teen Titans Judas contract story. And Gaia? Well, she's pretty terrifying. This whole story is really brutal. Perhaps one of the most brutal tales from the Dark Multiverse. Here, Tara ends up turning on her mentor, Slade Wilson, before going after the Teen Titans themselves, making quick work of them and the established, fully grown heroes who come after them, including Superman. Superman! It's gruesome and heart-wrenching and brutal. So if that is your kind of story, you will definitely want to check out this one and this version of Tara. I kind of hope we somehow get to see her again, to be honest. She's just like such a ruthless villain, and I'm really sad that she probably doesn't exist anymore now. I just bummed myself out. Number 1. Batman Who Laughs. Although he may have transcended and be defeated now, Batman Who Laughs remains one of the most terrifying characters to come out of the Dark Multiverse, a version of Bruce Wayne who ended up being turned insane by exposure to the Joker venom. This version of Bruce killed all of his fellow Bat family members except for Damian, who he instead recruited to join him. Yay. Batman Who Laughs would serve Barbados, the Bat God, and go on to assemble an army of Dark Knights from across the Dark Multiverse to join him in reshaping and conquering all of reality, becoming one of the most feared villains in all of DC's history, not just even within the Dark Multiverse. Number 10. Grim Knight. The origin story of the Grim Knight is similar to the Batman of Prime Earth, but is warped. Instead of the Dark Knight, we know him as the Grim Knight, because this Batman is not afraid to use guns. So yes, you could say he's similar to the OG Batman from the 40s, but he is also far more brutal and ruthless. This version of Batman ended up killing Joe Chill when he was just a child. After Chill shot his parents, he stumbled away in the darkness, but Chill tripped and dropped his gun and Martha Wayne's necklace. While he searched for the necklace in the dark, a young Bruce grabbed the gun and aimed it at Chill, killing him in cold blood with tears in his eyes. This set Bruce down the path of believing that killing was the best way to deal with criminals that opposed justice. This version of Bruce was still inspired by a bat crashing through his window to become Batman, but he also shot that bat when it did. Number 9. Death of Superman. After Superman dies at the hands of Doomsday, Lois becomes depressed and jaded, believing that the world failed Clark. She ends up merging with the Eradicator, who claims it failed in its mission to resurrect the fallen Superman, and instead bonds with Lois so that she can succeed where she believes other heroes have failed, fighting on in Clark's name. However, Lois goes too far compared to Superman, killing those who oppose her, villains and heroes alike. Superman returns, but only lives long enough to express his disappointment and disgust in what Lois Lane has become before he is killed by Cyborg Superman. Super depressing story. Number 8. The Merciless. Like the Earth 12 belonging to the non-dark multiverse, on Earth -12, Batman and Wonder Woman are also in a romantic relationship together. They fight side by side in a war that threatens to engulf the entire population of Earth against the god of war, Ares. After countless have died and they're basically the only two left standing, they finally succeed, but Batman feels in order to protect the world, he should be the one to wield Ares' power. Knowing that Wonder Woman herself would not take Ares' helmet and with it his power, and that she would actually not allow Bruce to take it for fear of it corrupting him, Batman sees no other choice but to kill Diana. He takes Ares' helmet for himself and fights on, claiming to fight in honor and in memory of the fallen warrior and his love, Wonder Woman. Number 7. Blackest Night. This is a wild story wherein Sinestro never shared the powers of the White Lantern. Here, Necron, who speaks through Darkseid, attempts to obliterate the entire universe. Sinestro is both Black and White Lantern, known as the Limbo Lantern, and sees only one way to save the universe, by creating a new universe in Dove's image, by plugging her into the source. This almost works, except at the last minute their ally, Mr. Miracle's conviction wavers, and he ends up killing Dove to avoid creating and living in a world without his wife Barda. Instead, Sinestro is forced to use the only teammate he has left, Lobo, to create a new universe. Yeah. Slim pickings, I guess. The world instead is made in Lobo's image, who taps into the source, eliminating all Black Lanterns and restarting a dark and more grotesque looking world which Sinestro remains trapped in, unable to leave due to Tempest preventing him from doing so. That sucks. Number 6. The Devastator. The Devastator is another twisted version of Bruce Wayne who is pushed too far. For mysterious reasons that remain unknown, the Superman of the Devastator's dark universe randomly underwent a change that caused him to go on a full-out rampage, killing everyone. Batman was one of the last few left to try and stop him, attempting to do so with a kryptonite spear. After Superman blasts off Batman's arm, however, he is driven to desperate measures. Batman is forced to activate his own version of the Doomsday virus, which takes over his body and transforms him into a doomsday-like creature, becoming the Devastator. Although he fails in saving his world, he succeeds in killing the Superman of his universe, before heading out to try and save other alternate Earths by infecting them with the virus in order to protect them from their world Superman. Although, you know, they never really asked for that, so it's pretty horrifying. Number 5. Infinite Crisis. In the dark multiverse, Ted Kord is not killed by Maxwell Lord. Instead, Ted pretends to agree to join Lord in cleaning house when it comes to his plans for Checkmate, but he betrays Lord and kills him. Brother Eye threatens to push on with the OMAC project, but Kord offers that he could help to guide Brother Eye and take Maxwell Lord's place, help Brother Eye save and protect the planet as Lord had promised Brother would. Ted ends up attempting to recruit Booster Gold to help him with Brother Eye, but Booster isn't so sure about his friend's plan. In the end, he teams up with Superboy Prime, who has been plotting with Alexander Luthor of Earth 3 to create a perfect world in the main continuity, but Luthor betrays him. Superboy and Blue Beetle, who's now directly connected to the Brother Eye, end up teaming up. They end up attempting to take out 50% of Earth's superhero population as recommended by Brother Eye, but in the end they're forced to eliminate or assimilate all of the superhero populace, who obviously are like, no, you can't just kill us, with Ted Kord sacrificing his humanity in order to completely demolish all of that superhero threat. Number 4. The Murder Machine. After the death of Alfred, Batman in his grief seeks to create an AI in Alfred's image and employs the help of Cyborg. Bruce calls the project the Alfred Protocol. Alfred Protocol is also programmed to act as Bruce's infallible bodyguard, and it's this programming which causes everything to go sideways. The Alfred Protocol spreads, taking out every villain, every criminal he deems a threat to Bruce Wayne's life. However, it doesn't end there. The Alfred Protocol also realizes in order to protect Bruce, it also needs to change him, protect him from himself and his emotions by eradicating them, starting with his fear. This change infects and transforms Batman into a cyborg version of himself known as the Murder Machine, who then goes about killing everyone, determining that everyone and his attachment to them is a weakness. Number 3. The Batman Who Laughs. This dark multiverse story was so terrifying it got its own series. The Batman Who Laughs actually got a miniseries to explain just how his story went down. By now we all should mostly know it, but if you haven't read it, it's chilling and thrilling and it's definitely worth a read. In the story, it's explained how Batman became corrupted by Joker venom when he ended up losing control and killing the Joker, triggered by being forced to watch the Joker kill children's parents in front of them before exposing them to Joker venom and driving them insane. When Batman killed Joker, this exposed him to Joker venom, which was released with the Joker's dying breath from his heart. Batman was then driven insane by the venom, becoming a warped Joker-Batman hybrid, and set out killing everyone, even the members of the Bat family, only allowing Damian Wayne to be converted with the venom and join him. He also later confessed that Alfred was one of the last people to try and stop him by blowing him up, but he managed to thwart and capture Alfred and break him, turning him into his own loyal servant once more. Number 2. The Judas Contract. So as bad as the Judas Contract storyline in the main continuity was for the Teen Titans, apparently its consequences could have been a lot more horrific and a lot worse. In this story, Tara finds herself inspired to become her own murderous villain all her own after one of Dick Grayson's inspirational chats. Great job, Dick. Grayson thinks that he's inspired Tara to become her own person separate from Geoforce's shadow though, not Deathstroke's shadow, as he does not know yet that Tara is actually a spy. She ends up unlocking her potential as a result, becoming more powerful than ever, taking up the name Gaia. She not only tears Slade Wilson apart, literally, but she kills the entire team of Teen Titans, even poor Beast Boy, no! And she also kills the entire Justice League. Number 1. Nightfall. If you haven't read the Tales from the Dark Multiverse, you obviously need to, as they are all pretty crazy, and honestly, the scariest tale can be found in this first one issue. This is a spooky retelling of the Batman story Nightfall. When Bruce has his back broken, he passes the mantle of Batman onto Jean-Paul Valley, aka Azrael. But when he returns, Azrael refuses to give up the mantle. Instead of Bruce Wayne and the Bat family winning it back as they did in the main continuity, this time around Bruce fails. He instead is held captive and tortured for 30 years by Azrael, who rules Gotham with a bloody and merciless iron fist as Saint Batman. Bruce eventually escapes with the help of Bane's son, Torn, and his mother, Lady Shiva. But his time in imprisonment, where he was slowly dissected, has changed Bruce, and no longer is he the man and hero we once knew. Number 10. Harley Quinn. Obviously, I want more Harley in the Dark Multiverse. I just always want more Harley. We definitely have not seen enough of her in these weird, twisted, alternate worlds. There are so many characters that I feel need to be more intensely explored, Harley included. I imagine a Harley Quinn story being like an alternate reality where Harley becomes the Queen of Gotham. This takes place after Harley leaves the Joker, and in doing so doesn't just leave but kills the Joker for how he's treated her. She then kills Batman as well and seeks to become the new biggest bad in an effort to liberate those who she believes deserve it, but of course in a weird and twisted way, becoming even worse than the Joker somehow. We've seen some pretty dark Harley alternates, and that's what I envision this one being like. Think like Harley Quinn and Batman Damned, but just more powerful and influential, while remaining just as unpredictable and as dangerous. Number 9. New Teen Titans Where Nightmares Begin. What if instead of Koriand'rs arriving on Earth and us getting Starfire on the team, we had Darkfire, Commander Corey's sister, instead? Let's say instead of Corey being imprisoned and escaping, Commander ended up being banished to Earth after Corey was rescued. She arrives on Earth and still ends up joining the new Teen Titans, but during their first mission ends up allying herself with the aliens, seeing an opportunity to rule over Earth and find a means of potential escape with Star Labs' dimensional portal. Darkfire instead of Starfire, I feel, would also be completely different in terms of her chemistry, or maybe lack thereof, with the rest of the Titans. And before we move on to the next point, thank you so much for watching, and just a reminder, if you want to help us out, you can do so by giving this video a big thumbs up. Number 8. No Man's Land. What if No Man's Land never stopped being a thing, and Batman just never reclaimed the city? Imagine an alternate world where in the future we have a very dystopian looking Gotham with different boroughs ruled by different villains. I like to imagine a story where these villains, after years of ruling separately, finally decide to broker peace so they can all expand their territory by taking over the entire United States. We watch as they brutally succeed in taking over the nation that years ago turned their back on Gotham, cutting it off and abandoning it to the wolves, who then themselves years later got greedy and ambitious. Maybe in the end only one villain is left standing as the ruler of the US. guess, but just who would it be? Number 7. Superman Blue and Red. So I know what you're thinking, wow Amanda, really, of all the DC storylines you could be talking about, you want to go back to this ridiculous story from the 90s? Well, Superman Blue and Red didn't actually start in the 90s, though yes, I am talking about that version of this story, because although it was a ridiculous story, it could have turned horrific had Superman Blue and Superman Red not wanted to rejoin and wanted to stay separate instead. What if they refused to work together and the Millennium Giants destroyed the JLA without their help as well as the planet? What if Superman Blue and Red watched the destruction and only managed to rejoin after due to, whatever ridiculous reason we want to go with here. The original story didn't really seem to pay much mind to making their rejoining make a bunch of sense, so yeah. Superman realizes after he's rejoined that it was his own divided forms' stubbornness that resulted in the destruction of the entire Earth, and therefore blames himself as he cries over Lois's lifeless body. And the lifeless body of his friends, He's probably upset about everyone dying, to be honest. Number 6. Brightest Day. Doesn't sound like a story that belongs in the dark multiverse, does it? But hear me out. I know we've already gotten a Blackest Night Tales the Dark Multiverse What If, but this would be more for the fallout afterwards, and would offer a different ending than the one we got with the Loboverse, where everything becomes Lobo, which is admittedly pretty terrifying. Everything is Lobo is not a universe I want to go to. This would be the opposite, sort of that, where everything goes well, but instead of the power of the White Lantern being given up, it remains, and we actually get kind of like a new core of lanterns out of it, the White Lantern Corps. The White Lantern's goal is to bring life to all corners of the universe, which sounds nice at first, until you realize we're going to get something where life becomes kind of ugly and twisted because there can be no death, resulting in basically something like the demonic Cancerverse of Marvel's 10011, but still drawn very eerily bright, and of course likely even more twisted because this is Tales from the Dark Multiverse after all, and everything gets pretty crazy here. Eventually the White Lantern light consumes of course not just the Earth, but the entire universe, transforming it forever. Number 5. Red Sun. But not that red sun. What if Superman landed somewhere other than Kansas? And no, I don't mean Soviet Russia. What if he never landed on Earth at all, but instead landed on Mars before the Martian Civil War happened, and ended up being raised during this time period by the White Martians? When the Civil War came about, he sided with them, also being raised to be a warrior. Although the White Martians would have likely still lost and been imprisoned, it is possible that Kal-El could have used his status as an outsider to convince the other Martians to take pity on him, but in reality be working to destroy the Green Martians from the inside out, still staying loyal to the White Martians, whom he thought of as his own people, and perhaps even helping them invade Earth before the Justice League ever existed. Basically, I just really want to see Superman turned evil and fighting alongside the White Martians. I think it could be pretty cool, and I think that it would also be a really dark and twisted story if it was told well. White Martians are scary. Number 4. Till Death Do Us Part. New Titans issue 100 saw Kori possessed by Raven and the deceased souls of 100 of Trigon's children before her. For a brief moment, the Titans lost Kori to Raven's influence, and she was forced to have a mental battle where she had to work hard to resist Raven's basic possession. Basically, she was possessed. But what would have happened if Kori had been unable to resist this? What if her willpower just hadn't been strong enough? Or her love of her friend Raven maybe just made her more sympathetic and unwilling to fight against her influence? Well, that would either mean that Kori would become like a surrogate mother to an actual 100 demon spawn horde, or she would hold all of those souls within her and they would be reborn instead through Kori. Perhaps this new Dark Kori would then team up with Dark Raven to rain down hell on Earth. I just like a story where both Raven and Kori are evil and they're like, ha ha ha, ha ha ha, we take over the world with demons now. Number 3. Darkseid War. What if the Justice League stayed as the New Gods? I can't imagine what that would be like, but I can imagine it would make a great new tale for the Dark Multiverse. I feel like what would happen here is we'd see our biggest hero team displaced as the Justice League fully took on these new roles. Maybe like in the original story, some of the other heroes would, try to come up and save the day and talk the other heroes out of having these powers, but instead of that working, perhaps those heroes would actually eventually meet their demise at the hands of their fellow colleagues who are now new gods, or at the hand of some impending evil that wiped them out before the core members of the Justice League could stop them. I don't even want to imagine what would happen with God of Apocalypse Lex if he had remained that way and just truly become our permanent replacement Darkseid. But I also kind of do want to imagine it, because it'd be pretty cool. But it'd also be scary. Number 2. Heroes in Crisis. What if Wally West just couldn't stop killing? What if during Heroes in Crisis, when he went haywire and killed by accident, he got a taste for it and just became the fastest murderer alive? How many people would he take out? Who and why? Would he kill villains, or would he even maybe turn on his friends? I can't deny that while I love Wally just being a good guy and not having this added crisis of conscience and guilt to deal with, I would also be kinda interested in seeing him just go full villain. How shocking would it be if that was the way Heroes in Crisis went? Maybe somewhere in the dark multiverse there is a world like that. Or maybe there could be. Number 1. Court of Owls. What about a world where Batman was recruited into the Court of Owls instead of becoming their target? Perhaps instead of destroying the nest, he became enamored by the folk story of the court and sought to join them. When he finds that they exist, he, instead of going against them, seeks to prove himself and become the new judge, or perhaps just a Talon, one of their deadly and often believed immortal assassins. I just have always loved the Court of Owls, and I would love to see a world where the Bat family was somehow successfully recruited into the court, even perhaps working with the court or working as the court to shape Gotham into the place they wanted it to be. Perhaps it's just a new form of vigilantism for them, but of course with much more death involved, I imagine. It's just a darker form of vigilantism.